Let me start with the Dodgers. How did it go south so quickly here, Tom?
Hey, don't forget, they're only a 1-0 win over the Padres from losing 17 in a row.
Wow.
Maybe they'll get there anyway. I don't know. It's almost as if that big lead was almost too much for them. They started really playing on cruise control. Dave Roberts was making sure all of his starting pitchers got extra rest. Bench guys were getting a lot of time. Don't forget, Corey Seager went down with an injury to the elbow, and that really hurt them. What I found, too, Dan, is that the Dodgers pitching staff, which loves to throw high fastballs. In today's game, everybody wants to hit the ball in the air, so they're vulnerable to high fastball. Well, that's what the Dodgers have seen in the second half of the season. And by adding Granderson, giving it bats to Kiki Hernandez, they got a ton of guys who can't hit a high fastball, and that's how teams are attacking them right now. I still think they're in good shape. As crazy as that sounds. Their whole season is about the postseason, right?
Yeah.
Give me Kershaw, Hill, and Darvish lined up, rested, ready to go, and they're as good as anybody.
All right, that brings me to the Indians now with their winning streak. How did this come about? And the fact that their starters have been unbelievable, I guess, is probably part of the answer here.
Absolutely. You definitely have to start with their starting pitchers. And I actually go back to last postseason. Remember when they took down the Blue Jays and almost took down the Cubs? Their pitchers threw a ton of breaking balls. And why not when you can throw a wiffle ball the way that Corey Kluber can throw his? And they carried that into this year. They've actually been on the cutting edge of a trend in baseball now where even though there's more velocity in the game, pitchers are throwing more fastballs, or fewer fastballs. And you know why, Dan? Fastballs get hit. They really do. Hitters have adjusted to velocity. So the Indians are one of the few teams now that throw less than 50% fastballs. So Kluber is throwing career-high curveballs. Trevor Bauer throwing a career-high curveballs. Carrasco, career-high sliders. Salazar, career-high changeups. On it goes. These guys have great stuff, don't get me wrong. But they're pitching backward now, and they're out in front of the pack.
Yeah, and hitters will say, I can adjust. I can get to 100. It'll take me a little while to adjust to it, but you can eventually get there. You don't hear somebody say, yeah, I can adjust to the curveball or the slider, right? I mean, it's...
No, you're absolutely right. And I think as much as we were wowed at all that, look at every game you see, right? You got guys throwing 95 and above, and it looks impressive on the radar gun and all that. But the fact is, as you said, these hitters can adjust, and I think this 8th generation of hitters have adjusted to velocity, and the Indians know that, and I think the success they had in the postseason, well, I know this. I've talked to the pitching coach, Mickey Callaway, about this, really changed their thinking. That old-school mentality of, hey, establish your fastball, your other stuff is complementary. They've turned that upside down, and it's working. And Kluber going tonight, listen, I got to like the Indians' chances, whether winning streak or not. That guy right now is as good as anybody in baseball.
Cubs are kind of hanging in there, though. I know that they haven't gotten the attention. Maybe that's a good thing for them. Handicap the Cubs' chances at repeating.
Yeah, not good.
No.
No, I think. Listen, they've struggled all year. I don't think they've played with any urgency all year long. They've been good enough, and probably will be good enough to be a first place team when all is said and done. But they're just not the same team, Dan. I mean, Schwarber, the team's found a hole in his swing. He's just not anywhere close to what they thought. Hayward hasn't really gotten much better, incrementally maybe, than last year. They've got a lot of outs in their lineup. That being said, they've beaten up on some bad teams. There's a lot of them in the National League this year. But listen, they're a notch below both the Dodgers and the Washington Nationals. Now, maybe they get their act together and the magic and the 50 dust shows up in October, but they're just not as good as they were last year.
If you're a Dodger fan, are you nervous?
Yeah, I've got to be nervous watching them night after night lose games like this. But again, we're going to see a different team in the postseason. I don't think Granderson and Adrian Gonzalez are going to get all these at-bats, and Kiki Hernandez and Kenta Maeda and Hyun-Jin Ryu are not going to start games in the postseason. This plan of theirs better work. They've basically played the second half almost like it's spring training. Not quite, but, in terms of using their depth. But they better make sure they tighten up at the end of the season. And, Dan, I'll go back to 2005. Remember when the White Sox won?
Yeah.
They had a 15-game lead in August. In the last 2 weeks of the season, it was down to 1.5. It was Panic City. but they finished those last 2 weeks really strong. And I remember Paul Konerko, after they won the World Series, said, listen, it wasn't fun going through it, but I don't think we win the World Series unless we had to tighten up at the end of the year. So maybe that moment's coming for the Dodgers.
One final question Fritzy would like to ask you this, Tom.
Is there any scenario if this continues to go poorly for the Dodgers and they bow out basically in the first round, even get swept, could Dave Roberts' job be in jeopardy at all?
No, they love him in L.A. He is the right manager for that team. You know, I've always said that anybody deserves, like, I'm not going to even call it a bad year, but say one failure, one slip up. And if they don't get out of the first round, it's easy to say it's a failure season for them. The leash would shorten, certainly. But no, they love him in L.A.
Any other questions, Fritzy, for Tom?
I think I'm good. I appreciate that, Tom.
Okay. Tom, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
You got it, Dan. Thank you. Anytime.
That's Tom Verducci, Sports Illustrated senior baseball writer.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.